So, UFC Fight Night, Moreno versus Royval 2 just happened, and I think as a community, we need to discuss some things regarding the UFC divisions here. So I missed most of the prelims. I started watching, I guess I missed the first three fights, but I started watching around here. I thought all the fights were doing pretty well. I was pretty entertained by them. Um, Faris Ziam had a really good performance against Claudio. Claudio was doing well, but I just think Faris was a little ahead. Edgar Charas finally retired Daniel Da Silva. Jesus Aguilar got a close decision on Mateos. I think it's fair. I know it's a little controversial. I think it's fair only because um, Jesus rocked Mateos twice, once in each different round. I think it was round. I want to say it was round 1 and 2 that he rocked Mateus, and Mateus just he was having success with the grappling, but he wasn't really doing much other than hunting for a submission. Um, it says only one submission attempt here, but he kept on trying to get his way to like arm bars, to like rear nakeds, stuff like that. He just he did well. I just think Jesus edged it just a little bit. I wouldn't be upset if Mateos won that though. I thought it was just a close fight. Barcelos came with a crazy submission in round 2. I guess it's not like too crazy, but Christian was having a lot of success and then he just ended up he looked really good at defending takedowns and scrambling until he decided to try to get up and instantly got his back taken by Honey Barcelos, which to be honest just kind of looks like a smaller version of Edson Barbosa. And I thought it was a really good fight. I was pretty entertained by it. Now we move to the main card. Chris Duncan, really sucks to see him lose. Love the accent, but sometimes it just is what it is, you know? You make one mistake against, lengthy grapplers, you just get submitted. Is what it is. Women's fight is whatever. Beat Sam Hughes. She was ahead of every round. I didn't really pay attention too much, but she just looked like she was doing better. Zell Huber against Prado. Prado is tough as shit. And he also just kept on throwing, which at elevation is crazy. I think it's wild to be able to throw, just keep on throwing as your face is that fucked up. Like this kind of reminded me a lot of it felt like Strickland versus Duplessis, uh, just round 5 basically, where Prado's face was just fucked up, but he just kept on throwing. Zal Huber won, but to be honest, this guy looks like he belongs in a Disney Channel show rather than the UFC, but it is what it is. Um, it was a close fight. I think 30-27 is a little crazy. I think Prado definitely won round 1. Prado's really young at 21 years old, so I'm interested to see where his career takes place. He's the same age as me, so maybe I'll see him one day. But nah, he's definitely a Chad. He definitely showed up to win. I was really excited with this fight, even though he lost. And now this is where we need to talk. So this was a 5 round fight. I don't remember why. Um, in the first fight, Yair versus Brian Ortega, Yair was piecing up Ortega and it wasn't even close, and Ortega basically hugged him against the fence until his shoulder popped out. Um, Man, I don't know about you guys, but when I watched this fight, it literally looked like Yair had the mindset of he can't knock me out. No point in guarding any of his attacks. I'm just gonna try to get something going here. Like it felt like he had no sense of Brian could win this fight, and he thought that every strike he landed was gonna knock him out. Like if you watch Joe Pyfer against Jack Hermanson, that's kind of what I felt like happened here, where Yair just thought every strike was gonna knock him out, and he was never scared of getting knocked out. And Brian Ortega coming off his year layoff and looking geriatric, soy, and apparently injuring his foot a minute before the fight happens in the octagon. This is crazy that Yair even allowed Ortega to win. Like, I still can't believe what I saw. It was literally Yair low IQing every stand up encounter, not doing any sort of flashy kick that he normally does. Like normally Yair's known for like a flying knee or like a spinning back kick or like, his combos are kicks. He threw like a couple leg kicks and that was pretty much it. He dropped Ortega and then wanted to grapple with him. Like if I'm Yair, you would just push Ortega away, stand up, and force him to stand up. Like, why are we grappling? Like, this makes no sense, especially when you have top and you're constantly. Like, there was a moment in round one, where Yair's just kind of. He stands up and he thinks about trying to do stand up more, and then he just decides to keep on throwing at Ortega. Ortega wasn't defending, so Yair was winning it, but it's still like, bro, stand up and just knock him out. You dropped him before, he's chinny, he's 30, almost 34 years old, he's coming off a 2-year layoff. Like, just knock him out. Like, what are you doing playing this game? And then Yair looked bigger than Ortega, but somehow he just couldn't defend anything Ortega was doing in the takedowns. Like, what was I watching? This felt like I was watching a debut of a Mexican fighter against Brian Ortega after 2 years off. Like, this is what it felt like. It was terrible. It was an awful performance from Yair. I think if you thought Brian Ortega was going to win this before entering the fight, you're just lying and you have money on the fight and you're just hoping you get a fluke win. Because there's no way you think a 2-year layoff, shoulder injury, rolls his ankle right before the fucking fight, and he looks soy as fuck. Like, if you didn't tell me this was a woman, if you told me this was a dude and you just showed me like the face down to almost chest level, I would be shocked. Like this literally looked like a soy retired for like Brian Ortega looked 40 years old in this fight and he still won. Like Yair is fucking terrible. I thought I was almost 100% confident on Yair winning this, but man, this year so far has been such a letdown. We've had we're gonna get into this. So in the bantamweight, bantamweight's the only one that's like been doing pretty well, aside from Henry Cejudo. Damn, he dropped a 6. That's pretty sad. Henry Cejudo was the only like letdown basically of this year so far. Everyone's been doing pretty well. Um, it sucked to see Volkanovski lose, but to see Yair Rodriguez lose to Brian Ortega that way is just terrible. Like, this guy's number 3 in the world, and I swear you could have taken anyone in the rankings against him that night, and they would have won. Like, Max Holloway would have taken him down. That's how bad Yair showed up. Most of our Evloev would have laid on him for the 5 rounds. Arnold Allen would have laid on him for 5 rounds and probably dropped him a few times. Josh Emmett would have knocked his ass out. I know he has a win over Josh Emmett. I guess it's just a fluke. Like, I guess that night he was just switched on and he just submitted him because Josh Emmett took him down for the first takedown in his entire fucking ranking career, apparently. Calvin Kattar would have probably obliterated Yair on the feet. Giga kind of sucks. Bryce Smith. Yair was so bad this night that I would have bet money on Bryce Mitchell knocking out Yair if it was like a stand-up only rule. That's how bad Yair showed up this night. It was so bad. Like, these guys would all slaughter him based on their last fights. But if this is the number 3 in the featherweight division, I didn't. Here's my take on Ilya. I think he's a great striker, probably a really good grappler, a little untested in the higher levels, but he's probably a good grappler. I know he came from a grappling background, but how is this allowed where Ilya puts one of the GOATs of all time out cold, and we get Yair and Brian Ortega as number 3 and 4? They honestly looked like amateurs fighting. They were shit. Brian Ortega doesn't know how to defend a single strike, and Yair doesn't know how to defend a single fucking takedown. Like, it's crazy to me. The only hope, the only person I think at this point in the top 10, the only person I think genuinely beats Ilya would be Arnold, fully healed off a really nice training camp. And that's pretty much it. Mozavar, I think, gets slept. Brian Ortega 100% gets slept. Not even close. Yair Rodriguez gets put out cold. Max Holloway, I think, would be competitive. But I think it would just be a situation like the Volkanovski, where Max Holloway doesn't really kick. Ilya throws a lot of hands. And that's just how Ilya wants to play. So I think Ilya probably wins. And Ilya's calling out new contenders. And I'm starting to see fucking why. Yair Brian Ortega, this is genuinely the number 3 and 4th featherweight in the world, and we're supposed to think that everyone else is below them. He smokes all of them. Like, this guy could genuinely become the GOAT if that's his competition. This guy could be the GOAT of the sport. He hasn't lost a zero. You know, with Volk, there's the one time he lost before getting his, like pound for pound number 1 status where he got dropped way, way early in his career. But Ilya could just keep his zero for another fucking 10 fights and just slaughter this whole division. Like, it's crazy to me that that was even a performance. It's wild. And then we move on to lightweight, which lightweight I'm pretty happy with. Lightweight is genuinely the hardest division. I think the hardest division is probably at this point, and this is gonna sound weird, but I think it goes lightweight, welterweight. Genuinely, it goes lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, then light heavyweight, and then you have probably bantamweight, then flyweight. We're gonna get to flyweight in a sec, and then featherweight, and then heavyweight dead last because heavyweight's just whoever gets knocked out. Like, heavyweight is actually a coin toss every fight. Not to say that they're not skilled or whatever, but that's just how heavyweight goes. Like, it's literally whoever lands first. It's pretty much who wins, you know? But yeah, that's how I'd rank it. Like, I haven't been disappointed by any performance by anyone in these two divisions so far this year, where it's clear the people outside the rankings of middleweight right now suck ass. If you can't beat Jack fucking Hermanson to get ranked. Where's Jack Hermanson? Damn, he's number 9? I guess he was 11 before. And then light heavyweight, I think, is good, but I think light heavyweight has gems, and I think the rest of them are shit. Like, Alex Pereira, gem. Jamal Hill, gem. Yuri is a little... It's been a while, so we'll see. Apparently his last fight he didn't even train for. So, interesting. Ankalaev, gem. And then Blachowicz, I think, is up the hill a little bit. Rakic could be... This is another, like, untested, kind of, coming off an injury. Krylov sucks. Walker, no chin. Roundtree's problem is that he has zero urgency. Ozdemir, eh. Smith, terrible. Span, terrible. Metafield, terrible. And yeah, I don't even need to explain these other 3. If you haven't seen them before, they're like, all of them are shit. All of them, terrible. At least in the bottom. And then heavyweights, yeah, coin flip. But yeah, so it's crazy to see featherweight get this bent over. Like, I watch a lot of the fights with either the MMA Guru or We Want Picks in the background because I enjoy their commentary over most of Joe Rogan's antics, Michael Bisping's biases, or just people talking about calf kicks for 25 minutes in a 15-minute fight. Um, and I think most people agree that that was a terrible fight, regardless of like, oh, Brian Ortega showed up that night. He might have shown up, but this is like an amateur's debut shown up. Like it was so low level, terrible. Like just watching it, you know? It's gonna be hard to explain if you haven't seen the fight, but it's basically just terrible. Like it's slow, it's sloppy, no technique, no setups, just hug, get to the ground, and I put a person like in a submission like they're a fucking white belt. Like I can't understand. And yeah, you're trained at elevation. So and this is in Mexico City. I'm aware of how high the elevation is and shit. This should have been Yair's fight. This should have been a minus 500 fight for Yair. That's how like confident I think people should have been in Yair. I don't understand how Brian wins. Like, it's fucking wild. And then moving on from that fight, he was up in strikes too. Actually crazy. And moving on, Brandon Moreno and Brandon Royval. I know a lot of people thought this fight was shit. I actually didn't think the fight was that bad, to be honest. I think it's definitely a bad showcase of the flyweight division, and it makes me worried for Dana White cutting the division or threatening to cut the division again, because there's a big problem in flyweight right now, and it's one guy dominates all the time, and everyone's just fighting to fight that one guy. And it's different because Volk had that, but Volk with like dominant performances, all of them fucking amazing. All of them were like tests, like this guy's the submission guy, this guy's the striker. You know, you have Max Holloway, best boxer UFC. You have Yair Rodriguez, was supposed to be the most dangerous matchup for him. Brian Ortega, greatest submission fucking specialist. You know, they were all tests for Alex at Alex's peak. Flyweight's problem is that everyone is an all-arounder fight most of the time, and you can't make it in flyweight without grappling, so most fights end up on the ground. That's why I was a little more happy with watching this fight, because most of this fight was standing up against the Brandons. Um, I don't think it was a robbery. I think it was kind of a close fight, but I think it was just Brandon did too much volume to deny his win. You know? Like an attempted 400 strikes. It's like watching Marab fight. Like, yeah, he fails 40 takedowns in 2 rounds, but that's the only thing going on, you know? Like the other guy's just defending it. You know what I mean? Um so this was kind of like the striking match of that. Like Brandon just did way more output no matter what, you know? Sorry, Royval did more output no matter what. Um I think Moreno also just went in thinking he won every round. Like at the end of every round, it seemed like his coaches were just like giving him advice to like, oh, get combos, keep. What was really bad for Moreno in this fight, I thought he was gonna get slept past round 3 for sure because of how often he just ducked his head. Like uh it literally looked like Quinlan versus Trey Waters, where Quinlan literally just kept on throwing an overhand right, hoping he was gonna knock Trey Waters out, but it just never happened because people have chins. You know what I mean? Um, and in flyweight especially, like I don't know what Moreno's. Don't get me wrong, Moreno landed for sure. Like the more damaging blows were definitely in Moreno's hand, but it just felt like he felt like Yair. He had the same mindset as Yair, like, oh, I've won this fight. Like I don't need to win. You know what I mean? I won this fight. And it turns out the two people who get fucking injured come back and they just win. You know, Brian Ortega pops out a shoulder, comes back, and he just wins. Why? Yeah, you're shit. He just has a terrible mindset. Then you have Brandon Royval. He comes back after getting a shoulder injury to Moreno, and he just wins. I guess he's just a better fighter. That's just how it goes, I guess. You know, Brandon Moreno should have had any urgency. Like if I was Moreno's corner, I would have been screaming at him to like shoot for a finish in the fifth round. And to be fair, in the final 20 seconds, they were going after it. But like, man, it was like Moreno had no sense of urgency, and Royval was just like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna win by decision. That's pretty much how this fight went. I know it was split, but it's just wow, especially in Mexico City. Man, these Mexican fighters just got way too fucking confident. The two Mexican fighters on the main and co-main event lose in Mexico City, and then pretty much every other Mexican fighter wins, except for I guess Quinones, you know. But it's just what a travesty it was in the fucking main card. To be honest, if Prado didn't happen, this would have been a snooze fest. Also, fucking what's his name? Raul Rosas Jr. Fight got canceled. Is what it is. Sucks. I think Ricky got injured or something. He probably just got scared. Ricky's been talking about retiring anyways, so I think he's probably gonna get finished. I think that fight got rebooked for next week, so is what it is. But yeah, I do think the UFC really needs to. Oof. I guess with the flyweight division, we really need to take a look. I'm worried about the flyweight division being threatened to be cut again. Literally only because it's just I don't think Pantoja is gonna lose the belt for a long time. Like Amir sucks. He gasses out. Pantoja is just gonna take over and probably finish him in the late rounds. Moreno just lost. He's gonna need 2 wins, bare minimum, to get a title shot. Royval, if he gets another title shot, we saw how the first one went, or sorry, second one went. So it's probably gonna be 0-3. Kai Kara France needs to fight Manel Cap. That needs to happen, and the winner of that needs to fight for the belt. Nicolau, Nicolau just needs to fight. We just need to see more from these guys, man. Like Alex Perez, like fucking Muhammad Makayev. How is this guy number 8? Like this guy hasn't won a round, I think, in 10 fights other than his finishes. You know, like just looking at Makayev real quick, wasn't it? Yeah, he finishes this guy. He finishes team. Why am I blanking on his name right now? I can't believe I'm blanking on his name right now. Tim Elliott. Um, he finishes Tim Elliott, but he lost the first 2 rounds. You know what I mean? And then he finishes Philo. I'm pretty sure he lost at least one of those rounds, and he made Malcolm X Gordon look good. That's how bad Makayev's been doing, and he just barely gets the submission in the late rounds. And he's number 8 in the world. Like, I'm really worried for flyweight, man. Really, really worried for flyweight. There's not really too many, like, this guy's coming up. You know what I mean? Like, you have Tatsuro Taira, great for Japan audience, but Tatsuro Taira needs to clean up his game. You know, like, Tatsuro Taira's, he's not of the level of the top 5. And it kind of goes like, it literally goes like Tatsuro Taira level, and then what, like, Cap, and then probably these 6 people are all relatively in the same rank, and then Pantoja, you know? So it's a rough state, and then man, featherweight's just looking. Ilya's. I was the most upset when I saw Ilya beat Volkanovski. Watching Volkanovski get dropped like that was literally like watching your best friend die, basically. Literally a corpse. Um, and I didn't think that Ilya was going to be able to hold the belt for very long. Like, I thought he'll probably get 2 defenses, 3 defenses, then lose it to someone. But at this rate, man, like, oh, I think he just dominates everyone based off that. Like, if that's number three in the world, and I rated Yair pretty high, and he beat Emmett, it's like, man, everyone's just shit. I hope Arnold does well. I like Arnold. I think he got robbed of that TKO in Canada. That was bullshit. He should have won that fight. But it is what it is. But yeah. So that's all I got for this. This was the UFC Fight Night Moreno Royval 2 breakdown, basically. Very big disappointment overall. For the main events. But I guess there's some young talent. Prado's looking good. Even though we lost, it was a good fight. And then you have the new Jalen Turner being Daniel Zellhuber, basically. How tall is he? He's like, isn't he 6'1", 6'2", or some shit? He's 24 too. Like, this guy's young, Like, he's 6'1", yeah, 6'1", 77-inch reach. That's massive. That's Jalen Turner's reach, I'm pretty sure. So, some good prospects at least, but fuck, man, was the main event and co-main event just a letdown. But yeah, that's all I got for today.